In today's video, we're going to be diving into the upcoming pattern. We do have multiple very interesting topics to discuss today. We still have Debby out there along the southeast coast, and this storm is going to bring some pretty severe flooding up and down the southeast, mid-Atlantic, and northeast areas of the United States. Even if you're in New England, you are not safe from this heavy rainfall that is on the way, or even into eastern Canada. So we're going to be discussing that, of course. We also have some colder air on the way that is going to bring a sneak peek of fall temperatures. Definitely something to be a little bit excited about if you are a cold lover and you like the cooler weather this time of year. Every time it's about August, September timeframe, I am just itching to feel the fall time cold. I'm so excited for fall time this time of year. I'm sure a lot of you are as well. We're also going to be discussing other storms around the nation, including some more tropical threats that could be on the way. So let's just dive into things. I know that was a mouthful. And as we take a look at later on this afternoon, Wednesday, August 7th here, what we see is Debby is bringing multiple impacts from the mid-Atlantic through down into the southeast still. This storm is really stalled out off the Georgia and South Carolina coast, so still bringing some heavier rainfall for those pockets, North Carolina as well, and now even into Virginia by this later afternoon. We do see that those storms that we've been calling for are going to be occurring here throughout some of the Rockies and Plains here, so be on the lookout for that as well. Here is by the time we take a look at Thursday, August 8th. And we can see this storm will have curved back inland here as a 995, again bringing some heavier precipitation still to this corridor, even up into New England by this point, so a far stretching storm. We do see that the Rockies and Plains are still quite active. We even have a low pressure center near the Great Lakes that's certainly bringing some interesting impacts as well. Let's take this towards Friday afternoon on August 9th, and what we see is that Debby has pretty much moved up into the mid-Atlantic and northeast corridor. We do see heavier showers and thunderstorms racing up to the east and south of this system, so a lot of moisture being drawn in by this system. We do see a low overhead as well up there for Canada, and this one does have a little bit of a cold front that doesn't have a lot of precipitation around it, so it's a low precipitation cold front, but this colder air is on the way. This tropical system is drawing warmer and more humid air up the coast, so we have a setup like this where cold air is trying to swing in behind, but the warm air is racing up the coast. Meanwhile, we still have plenty of activity around the Rockies and the Plains states by this Friday, July 9th or August 9th time frame. Here is Saturday, August 10th, and we can see that finally Debby has gone ahead and moved up into Canada, so some heavy precipitation up there south of the Hudson Bay, to the east of the Hudson Bay as well, happening around Canada. We still have this Rockies and Plains activity, and there is some typical springtime or typical summertime thunderstorms happening for the southeast, but really a lot of the activity from Debby has gone ahead and exited the United States, and now we're talking mostly about Canada for the impacts from Debby by Saturday. Sunday, the 11th here, what we see is that there is still some remnants up there in the northeast as well as for eastern Canada, but really receded by this point. For a lot of the Rockies into the plains, we do continue to see some activity in here as far as thunderstorms and showers are concerned, so definitely a very interesting situation out there as we've seen multiple days of activity around that area of the nation, as well as the southeast here across the deeper south and up into portions of the southeast coast. There is continuing to be thunderstorm activity by later this weekend. Let's take it towards Monday on August 12th, and what we see is that the Pacific Northwest and through the Rockies, we are seeing plenty of thunderstorms. Same story for the Plains and Midwest, lots and lots of thunderstorm activity. And for the southeast up into a little bit of New England where we have some isolated showers and thunderstorms occurring. So a pretty interesting and active pattern as we reach early next week. Tuesday, the 13th here, looking a little bit quieter. There's still some activity across the Northwest Rockies and Plains, but it has receded quite a bit in intensity. And same story for the deeper south into the southeast, really just not as organized as it once was. Here's Wednesday on the 14th, and what we're seeing is mostly thunderstorms around the upper Midwest and northern plains. Some isolated activity along the Gulf and East Coast, but really a far cry from what we've seen a while ago. It's definitely gone ahead and become a lot less active there. By Thursday the 15th, what we see is a tropical system well out to sea here to the east of the Bahamas developing, and this one is one that we have been tracking for a while now. As I've mentioned before, we're still going to want to be on high alert for the East Coast, as this storm is, obviously hundreds of miles offshore, but we did see Debby trend hundreds of miles further west than what it was originally anticipated, so anything is possible. We're going to continue to track this storm as if it's a threat for not only the East Coast, but also the Gulf Coast. And this is what history has told us to do, really. Don't be too confident in any scenario. On the channel here, we always prepare for the worst, hope for the best, and consider every single possibility, which is almost anything in weather. So that's the interesting part about weather, but also the dangerous part, is anything is truly possible. As we reach towards Friday the 16th, which will be our final day here, we do see this storm is developing really, really intensely. There we do have a pretty big area of storminess in the southeast corner of the nation, as well as the northern plains and northern Rockies. Very interesting. As we take a look here at the European AI model, what we're going to be doing is just tracking some of these tropics, and what we see is Debby is obviously out there along the southeast coast, but not only that, we have an area of interest here in the southern Caribbean. Chances of this one developing, kind of as I've suspected, have dropped off quite significantly. We talked about it yesterday, how this southern Caribbean area, as well as kind of having land interaction along the Central Americas there, is really not ideal for tropical development, and we have seen this one drop all the way down to a 10% chance of development over the next 7 days, so really looking like a low chance of anything coming of that one. We do see a lot of activity happening in what we call our MDR, which is short for Main Development Region, and this is really, really interesting. We should have probably 2 or 3 waves across this area of storminess, so definitely a lot of activity to come. We can see the tropical flow is something like this. So they should be heading directly westward as they typically do. And there's a lot of pull. So it's either going to be the East Coast or out to sea here. Really, there's a lot of pull in this northern direction. Once you reach offshore or nearby the East Coast, there is obviously a slim chance that this could head into the Gulf, some of this activity, but we're not really leaning towards that right now unless it tracks very, very far southward. So let's just see how all of this comes together. We see system number 1 right there. Hit the kind of eastern Caribbean, skirt along Puerto Rico, and then out to sea, as we've kind of noted, becomes a very strong storm, even further east than Bermuda. So pretty low chance of development. We don't really see any of these come out of there and develop after this point, but we do see a couple of waves still nearby Africa. This model isn't perfect, and we probably will have more threats than what this shows, but as of now, there is a lot of areas of interest, at least off the shore of Africa, and this should be interesting to track moving forward, as we will continue to do so, obviously. Here's the total precipitation around the nation. Higher amounts for the Rockies and Plains, where we've been talking about day over day over day thunderstorms. Same story along the East Coast with Tropical Storm Debby. This should bring heavy, heavy amounts of precipitation. Not only the reds, where we see 2 to 5 inches, but the browns, where we see 5 to 10, should be very, very active for these areas. As we take a look at the precipitation anomalies, this will obviously bring far above average amounts here for the East Coast, especially now the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast moving forward. We do see areas around the plains and the Rockies here seeing some above average amounts, but really, really below average amounts for a lot of the Gulf and some of the Great Lakes here. Outside of Debby, we would probably be looking at full-on below average precipitation in the entire eastern states if it wasn't for Debby, of course. As we take a look at the temperature anomalies, once again, like I was mentioning earlier, we do have a cool down on the way, and this does arrive quite shortly, as we're looking at later on this weekend, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday timeframe. We do see this cooler air really, really take over for a lot of the east and central states. This will be a nice relief from that heat, like I mentioned earlier, so be on the lookout for this. Obviously, don't expect things to be in the 60s in August, but we could see some upper 70s, lower 80s, depending on where you're at. And you're used to the 90s more than you even think, or the upper 80s, at least for most areas. You're used to that severe heat by this point. So lower 80s and upper 70s can feel quite cool in the late summer like this. Obviously, if it was, March, April timeframe, it would feel hot as all get out. But what we're used to over the whole course of the summer, from what I've noticed through my life and what I've learned, is that you're going to be really adjusted to the heat, and anything cooler, is going to feel much cooler than it typically would if it was winter or early spring. So just keep that in mind as well. As we keep going, we do see that this does warm back up over the long range as we approach kind of like the 20th time frame of August. This should come as no surprise. I mean, obviously, this is what we would expect in August at least. September, October is when we can start talking about the real cooldowns, and really we're knocking on the door. So very, very close. Don't have to wait too long. Here's the cone forecast for Tropical Storm Debby. As you can see, we do expect this one to track pretty much northwestward for a while here into South Carolina and even central North Carolina before arriving near the border of West Virginia and Virginia as a tropical depression Friday morning, just 2 days from now, and then a post-tropical cyclone moving through Pennsylvania into New York State, maybe across northern New England or southern Canada there, before really racing off to the northeast of Canada there. As you can see, this system is in a hurry once it moves through kind of the southeast portion here, but this should bring very, very heavy rainfall up and down the east coast. And as you can see here, we do expect quite a bit. Light greens are 1 to 2 inches of rainfall, dark greens are 2 to 4, yellows are 4 to 6, light oranges are 6 to 8, dark oranges are 8 to 12, and we see a lot of that happening over southern North Carolina there, as well as some of Virginia. 8 to 12 inches. I mean, that is a whole lot, especially in South Carolina, North Carolina, where they've already seen a whole lot as well. This is just the icing on the cake, if you will. But we do see those yellows stretching all the way northward through the mid-Atlantic, northeast, and even into Canada. And that's 4 to 6 inches. In some valleys and mountainous areas, that can cause some very serious issues. So some concerning flooding still on the way. Anyway, guys, that's it for this video. Be sure to subscribe. We do upload every single day, and I cannot wait to keep you guys up to date with all of these concerns moving forward. Obviously, we expect this hurricane season to be one of the worst of all time, potentially the worst of all time is kind of what's expected. So we are going to have a whole lot of activity to talk about. Some exciting stuff if you're still watching the video by this point that's coming up. We're going to do the fall foliage video, the first freeze, the first snowfall, all of those videos, those seasonal videos are coming up very soon here in the month of August. An updated winter forecast as well as in the works. And I do want to make one fall forecast very soon, just so that I have time to make a final forecast right before meteorological fall starts on September 1st. So really, I'm going to be trying to make 3 in total fall forecasts. We do have some updated information. I think we'll be even updated further by the September 1st timeframe, but I know so many of you are curious about it, so we're going to be updating you guys on all of these things. So be sure to subscribe, be sure to hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.